I'm Shrija,
And I'm Deepti.
and we are the storytelling duo from Sugar and Spice. It's a new storytelling venture that we've begun. It's very recent. We bring out stories at least twice in a month, and on this special occasion of World Storytelling Day, we are so happy to be part of this wonderful drive.
Yes, and thank you, Niyati, for giving us this opportunity to share our story today. And we'll be coming up with two stories, one each from Shrija and I. So let's directly get on to the stories.
We'll be starting the first story from Deepti.
So, my story for the day is from the Legends of Kerala, the southernmost state of India. A very, very beautiful state, I'm sure all of you know. And this story is a folklore from the collection of stories called Aidihya written by Kotaratil Shankuni. So, my story is about a great Brahmin scholar from the kingdom of none other than the great king Vikramaditya. His name was Vararuchi. He was also the half brother of King Vikramaditya. And though I said the folklore is from Kerala, this story actually goes back to a place called Pataliputra. Vararuchi was actually from there. So he was a very close confidant of King Vikramaditya, and he was a great scholar. And his literary knowledge and his knowledge in all the subjects was really vast, and there was no one who could defeat him in this topic. So King Vikramaditya once posed a question to Vararuchi, which he was sure that Vararuchi would be able to answer. The question was, what was the most important verse of the epic Ramayana? Now, as surprising as it may sound, Vararuchi was not able to give a satisfying answer to this. Now, King Vikramaditya was really angered by this situation, and he said that how can you not know, you are a literary genius? And Vararuchi was very, very shattered and disappointed with himself. And King Vikramaditya gave him an ultimatum. He said, I am giving you 41 days to find out the answer to this question. Otherwise, don't return to my kingdom. So Vararuchi was disheartened and he leaves the palace and he wanders to meet all people he possibly can to get this answer. But he does not get a satisfactory answer. Till the 40th day, he is completely disappointed and he scattered far away into the forest. And he reaches this huge banyan tree under which he falls asleep. At the last quarter of the night, he listens to two birds talking on the tree. Now, since he had all his supernatural powers, he was able to understand their language. They were talking about a delivery, a childbirth that was happening in a nearby Paraya home. Now, Parayas were supposed to be a lower caste those days. They said a Paraya girl has been born to a couple today, and the other bird asks, who is she going to marry? So the bird replies that unfortunately she is going to have to marry this man who's sleeping under this tree. You know, he is such a great scholar, but he doesn't even know what the most important verse of Ramayana is. So the other bird curiously asks, what is it then? So she replies, it is actually Mam Vidhi, the verse which Sumitra tells Lakshmana when they leave for the Vanavasa, where she tells, consider Rama as your father, Dasharatha, consider Sita Devi as your mother, and the forest as Ayodhya. So that is the most beautiful and the most important verse of Ramayana. So Vararuchi listened to all this and he's delighted and disappointed at the same time. He's delighted because he got the answer to the question, and disappointed because a great Brahmin like him, how could he marry somebody from the lower caste? Well, he got the answer, so he decided to go back. He goes back happily to the palace, presents such a beautiful explanation of this verse from Ramayana to King Vikramaditya, and he is immensely pleased with Vararuchi. He embraces him and presents him with a lot of riches. And as the court disperses, Vararuchi tells the other side of the story also to King Vikramaditya, but in a different way. He says, there is this Paraya girl which the child has been born now, but this child is going to bring doom for our kingdom. So we have to kill the child. Now King Vikramaditya was scared of killing a child as it was a great sin. But when he had no reason to disbelieve the great Vararuchi. So they plotted this plan and sent the soldiers to do away with the child. They snatched the small baby girl from the mother's lap and pierced a flaming torch on her crown and put her in a plantain leaf raft and threw her into the river and believed that she had died. Vararuchi heard the news and he was delighted. He was arrogant and he said, "Who said destiny can't be changed? I have changed destiny." This happened and Vararuchi settled down and had a very happy life. After many years, he used to travel a lot. He traveled extensively. And one day, he reached a Brahmin home. Now, the Brahmin was delighted to receive Vararuchi as he was a great scholar. And he said, there is a river behind our house. Please go have a bath in the river and come. We will serve you food. So Vararuchi, for the scholar and the learned person that he was, he had a mischievous plan. He said, okay, I will have lunch, but I have few conditions. You have to satisfy those conditions. Only then I will have lunch. So the Brahmin asked, what are the conditions? Whatever it is, if it is in our capacity, we would be happy to do it for you. So he said these conditions. He said, I want to feed 100 people before lunch is served to me. I want to have 108 dishes for my meal. I want to eat 3 people after my meal. And I want 4 people to carry me once I'm done with my lunch. The Brahmin was totally confused. How is this possible? So he came inside with a sad face. His daughter was standing there listening to all this. So he said, Father, don't worry. Please tell the great man to have his bath and come. He will be ready with all his arrangements. So the Brahmin, he was confused. He didn't know what to do, but he believed his daughter. So he told this to Vararuchi. And Vararuchi went to have a bath. Now the daughter called her father inside and said, don't worry, father. He just means a few things. He just meant it in the form of riddles. So by feeding 100 people, he meant to perform the ritual called Vaishyam, which is equivalent to feeding 100 people. It is a symbolic thing. Having 108 dishes, he just meant there is a ginger pickle, a special ginger curry, which is served in Kerala. It's so delicious and it's so special. It is said to be equivalent to 108 dishes. So he just wants that for lunch. By saying that he wanted to eat 3 people, he just meant he wants to chew arecanut, betel leaves and lime, which was the practice those days. And after lunch, he wanted to have a nap on a nice cot with 4 legs. Those were the 4 people he meant that he wants to carry him. So these are very easy conditions. We just have to understand. So Father, don't worry, let him come. So the Brahmin was really happy at the intelligence of his daughter. And when he came back after bath, all the conditions were fulfilled. And Vararuchi happily had his lunch. And finally he asked the Brahmin, okay, so I'm really impressed by the way that you have understood all my conditions and satisfied all of them for me. I'm very, very happy. So the Brahmin said, no, no, it's not me. It's my daughter who told me the meanings of all your conditions. So Vararuchi wanted to see this girl. And when he saw her, he was so happy that she was so intelligent and beautiful. And Vararuchi wanted to ask her hand in marriage. The Brahmin happily obliged because he was getting a very, very learned, scholarly person as his son in law, and he happily arranged for the wedding and they both got married. After a few days, Vararuchi and his wife were having a romantic conversation, and in the middle of that, he caressed her tresses and he saw this mark on her crown and asked, "Dear, what is this?" So the girl said, her name was Panchami. She said, "My parents are not my biological parents. They adopted me. My mother was having a bath in the river when she saw a plantain raft with a baby in it. And she took the baby and she brought me up like their own daughter." This was the biggest shock that Vararuchi got. He had realized that destiny could not be changed, and it was the same pariah girl, the same pariah infant whom he tried to do away with when she was so little, and he tried to change destiny, but he had to succumb to what was meant for him and he had to marry her. Now he had calmed down and he told Panchami that, "Come, I will be happy to have you as my wife and we will start traveling. This is a turning point in my life. We will start traveling." And the most beautiful part of this story is they say this Vararuchi from Pataliputra is actually the forefather of almost all the castes of people in Kerala. The Hindu people in Kerala actually are in some way or the other related to Vararuchi and Panchami. This is a beautiful story called Paraipetta Pantirukulam, and I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Lovely story, Deepthi.
So now for another beautiful story, surprisingly to do with destiny again. Over to Srija.
Okay, Deepthi. So this one, the name of the story is The Monkey's Paw by W. Jacobs. It's quite a popular story, but I haven't heard it said in recent times, so I thought I'll say it. This takes us to a totally different scene. We are in an English countryside. It's nighttime and it's cold and snowing outside, but we are looking at the little family inside. The old man, his wife, and their young son, Mrs. and Mr. White, and their son Herbert. So they're waiting there, the fire is burning, and it's a very cozy scene that we have there. They're waiting for the guests to come, and the father and son were playing a game of chess, but soon they hear their guest approaching, and Mr. White welcomes Sergeant Major Morris, who he brings in and introduces to his family. Drinks are served and they sit around listening to the wonderful tales, the adventures, which are narrated by Sergeant Major Morris. He was a man who'd spent 21 years in India, so he had lots to say about the different people he met there, about the fakirs and the beautiful palaces and wonderful tales. So as he was talking about this, Mr. White interrupted him and said, "Didn't you mention something about a monkey's paw the last time we met? Can you tell us a little more about that?" Monkey's paw? His family sat up with curiosity. What about a monkey's paw? The soldier was very reluctant to talk about, very hesitant to talk about it at the first moment. But then when he found that his audience was very, very keen on listening to it, he said, "Okay, I think I have it with me." And he pulls out this little wizened little talisman, a mummified monkey's paw. And he says, "This is what I was talking about. It's magical." "It's magical?" "Yes, this one belonged to a very powerful fakir in India who had placed a spell, a kind of enchantment on it. You could call it a curse. And he said that 3 different people could get 3 different wishes from this talisman. And he did it because he wanted to prove that one couldn't mess around with one's fate or destiny. It's written and it has to be followed. If you try to mess around with it, there would be a price to pay. Now, when this was said, the story behind the monkey's paw was said, even though the little family joked and laughed about it, there was a little seriousness in the air as well, a little gloom. So Mr. White asked the soldier, "So why are you keeping it with you? Did you get your 3 wishes?" "Yes, I did," he said, looking very sad. "So why are you keeping it with you?" He says, "I thought I'll sell it to somebody else. I got it because the first person who had it, the third wish that he wanted was for death. That is how it was passed down to me. I would like to sell it to somebody, but people don't believe in this thing, you know. They tell me that we take it from you if we are able to get our 3 wishes first. We'll pay you later. So I've been keeping it with me." But as he was talking, all of a sudden, the soldier just picks up this little monkey's paw and throws it into the fire. Mr. White jumps up and rescues it, takes it out and says, "What's wrong with you? If you don't want it, don't throw it away like this. I'll keep it. I want it." His friend tries to tell him, "Don't do it. It's evil. I don't think you should keep it with you." But then there was no way he could dissuade Mr. White from keeping it with him. He says, "Okay, if you must, when you make your wish, place it on in your right hand, raise it up and wish for it aloud." At this, the family laughed and joked and they got ready for dinner. So dinner was a very pleasant affair. Coffee was served after that. And finally, when their guests had left, the 3 of them looked at the monkey's paw and thought about it for a while. And Mr. White said, "Do you really think it works? Do you think I should wish?" So the son says, "Why not?" And he was laughing. He was teasing his father. "Go ahead, father, wish for something." And the old woman smiles, but she looked a little worried, because no one knew what they were dealing with here. And so the old man took it up in his hand and said, "What shall I wish for? I think I have everything I want. What could I possibly want?" Then his son came up and smiled at him and said, "Why don't you ask for 200 pounds, father? Isn't that the amount you want to pay off the last payment that we have to make on this house? You'll be free then. There's nothing that you have to pay after that." The father said, "That's a good idea, son." And he did just that. He picked up the paw in his hand and he wished aloud for 200 pounds. But the minute he did that, he screamed and threw the paw down on the ground. "What happened?" his family said, and rushed up to the man. He said, "That thing moved," he said in horror. "It moved in my hand like a snake. I could feel it. It was alive." They comforted him and said, "No, I don't think it moved. You just must have imagined it with all these stories and the drinks and the time that we've been having. I think we should go to bed." The old couple slowly went up to bed because their son teased him, saying, "I don't think the money is coming. I don't see any money around you. Maybe you'll find it on your bed, Dad. Be careful. There might be something dreadful sitting on top of the cupboard and watching you when you take your ill-gotten gains." So on that note, the parents went up. Herbert sat there, but when he looked at the fire, the dying embers of the fire, he thought he could see some dreadful faces, horrifying faces that were coming up. And the last one looked so much like the face of a monkey that he looked around for a little bit of water to throw on the fire. But instead, what came into his hand was the wizened talisman. He put it away on top of the cupboard and went to bed. The next day, they laughed and joked over it over breakfast because with the room all lit up with the winter sun, everything looked so pleasant and wonderful. And Herbert said, "Okay, Dad, I don't think there's any money coming right now. And if it does, I don't want you taking it before I come. Keep it for me. I want to see it." And the mother says, "But I don't know how 200 pounds could possibly hurt. How could it possibly hurt anyone?" So Herbert says, "Maybe, Mom, it's going to drop out from the sky and it could hurt Dad, so watch out." And he left for work. The couple continued. The day went by peacefully. It didn't stop Mrs. White from looking every now and then out of the window to see if anybody was coming in. And finally, when they were sitting down to supper, she did see somebody standing at the gate. She watched him for a while because he kept coming up to the gate as if to open the latch, but he would go back again, like he was hesitant. And finally, he did come in. She did notice that he was very well dressed, so there was some hope in her mind, in her heart, and she opened the door. And the guest came in and they asked, "Where are you from, sir?" So he looked a little low, a little, we would say, uncomfortable. And then he said, "I come from," and he mentioned Herbert's company. The mother immediately panicked. She said, What happened? Is Herbert okay?" Her husband comforted her. Mr. White told him, "Come on, nothing is wrong with our son. He must have just come to give us something, some news or pass on a message from Herbert. What is it that you would like to say?" he asks. And the man looks at them and says, "Look, I only represent the company. I'm doing my job. I don't like it, but I have to do it. But your son, Herbert, was caught in the machinery in the factory." The mother stopped. Almost she stopped breathing and she looked at him and said, "What do you mean?" And the father said, "Okay, what exactly are you trying to say here?" He says, "He was caught in the machinery." "Is he in pain?" the mother wanted to know. He says, "No, ma'am, he is not in pain." So at first, she was a little relieved, but then she understood what the man was trying to say. And when the old man asked him, "Can you tell us what happened?" He says, "Your son died. He was caught in the machinery. We couldn't save him. And the company would like to compensate for your loss. And I was sent to tell you this." And Mr. White looked at him in shock and asked him, "How much is the company giving us?" He said, £200. The old man collapsed, screaming. Now the scene ends there. The next part of the story, we see the couple who buried the son a little far away in a brand new cemetery from the house. It was far away from the house, and they were in the room. Their life, maybe 1 week had gone by, their lives had resumed, but there was no life in them, It was like they were living for the sake of living. No sunshine, no happiness. The love of their life was gone. And this was the existence that they were living. So after 1 week or so, Mrs. White just suddenly came up to her husband and said, "Where's a monkey's paw? You haven't thrown it away, I hope." And her husband looked at her with anger and said, "How dare you ask me for that thing which ruined our lives? You're still looking for it?" She said, "You don't understand, old man. You wished only one wish was used. We still have 2 wishes. What are you trying to say? You want to use that talisman again? Of course. Wish Herbert back. If the talisman could take away our son, it could give our son back. Wish for him. I want my son back again." The old man tried to convince his wife, who seemed to have taken on, a very maniacal expression. She said, "No, I want my son back." Then he tried to explain to her, "You don't understand. When I went to identify the body of our son, I could recognize him only with the clothes that he wore. There was nothing left. It was so mangled. I didn't want to tell you. You want your son back like that?" She said, "You think I'm scared of a son, a child who I nursed? I want to see him. Wish for the boy." The old man, out of desperation, went down the stairs, picked up the talisman and wished aloud. He dropped it again and rushed up, waited in fright. He was worried. He kept listening. Would something happen? And he didn't hear anything. So he thought, okay, thank God, this has not worked out. And he tried to go to sleep, but it was very dark. So he decided he'll go down and light another candle. And he went down the stairs. At first he thought he had heard something. He thought he had heard something when nothing was there, but he did hear it. There was a soft knock. He froze on the stairs. It was like somebody was knocking on the door, someone who didn't want anybody else to know that he was there. It was a very soft knock. He waited again. The second time it was more insistent, and then the pounding began. He ran up the stairs. He closed the door, but his wife had heard the sound. And she said, "I hear there's a knock. I know there's a knocking there. Why are you closing the door?" So I said, "No, I'm sure it must have been rats, dear. It can't be anything else." She said, "No, I believed you. I thought at first that the talisman had failed us, but I'd forgotten the cemetery is very far away from our house. He needed time to walk up here." And she pushed her husband aside and ran down the stairs and opened the door. She was trying to open the door. When she opened the first bolt, her husband from above heard her scream, "Come down and open the top bolt. I can't reach the top bolt." But the old man was on his knees looking for the talisman that he'd thrown. And his wife, when she found that she could get no support from her husband, pulled up a chair and opened the bolt herself. The old man could hear her opening the door to let in their son when he made his third wish. Then he heard a shout of disappointment. This gave him the strength to run down the stairs. He found his wife collapsed, weeping near the door. There was nobody there. He ran down the drive, looked over the gate. The only thing that he saw was the lamp opposite, the street lamp opposite, and the road was deserted. Our story ends there. The monkey's paw.
Very nice, really wonderful story. It kept me on my toes.
Yeah, you can mess around with
scary
destiny.
as well, yes.
Yes.
So I hope you all enjoyed both our stories. Thanks again for this wonderful opportunity.
Yes, and we enjoyed saying them to you, narrating these stories to you as much as I hope you enjoyed listening to them.
So it's bye-bye from
bye.
Sugar and Spice.